Hi, my name's Beth Burgess from Smiles Life Coaching, and I just want to talk to you about happiness and true happiness and what that is. So we're going to talk about two different types of happiness, and I hopefully you'll come to your own conclusions about it at the end. But I'm just going to talk you through them. So there's two sort of main types of happiness, and the first one is the kind of fix of happiness. And that, if you know your biology, is kind of like a dopamine affected happiness. So it's caused by things like, chocolate, sugar, alcohol. It's one of those things that has a pattern of like a roller coaster, up and down. You kind of get a hit, then you have your low, get a hit, have your low, sort of thing. And it can be caused by roller coasters. In fact, that's another one of those things that will give you that kind of high. Now, the problem with that kind of happiness is it's not really sustainable, and I'll go into that a bit more in a minute. But the other type is more of a sort of slow burn happiness, and it's more of like a mellow sort of happiness. And that, if you like, you can refer to as the serotonin one for you who know your neurology and stuff. That's what happens when serotonin is released in your body. So basically, the dopamine one is a very, very short lasting thing. And it actually happens in short bursts as well, so you can get it quite quickly. So, for example, eat a bit of chocolate, woo, I'm up there, do you know what I mean? Whereas the slower one is longer lasting, and it takes more, though, to build it up. It's something you build up over time. You can't necessarily just get it when you want it. And I think a lot of us fall for this, of the dopamine hit and the fixes. Because nowadays we all want stuff like immediately, don't we? We want instant gratification. We don't want to work for things. But I'll towards the end of this, we'll draw together why actually it might be better to sort of build on your happiness day by day. So the first problem with dopamine happiness and that fix issue is that if you're an addict, you'll have experienced this in a very strong way. If you're not, you'll still have experienced it, whereby you need more and more of something to get the same sort of hit. So, I mean, we see this particularly in society these days, don't you, with food and stuff. I mean, years ago, we just went to the fast food restaurants and you just had like a packet of chips and that was fine. Nowadays, everything has to be supersized, I mean, what's happened there? It's just that as a society, we've grown used to the smaller hits and now we want the big ones. And this is why you see things like, these days cosmetic surgery gone out of control. Like, it's not enough to have, I don't know, like just using a face mask. Now you have to have peels and enhancements and all sorts of things. Because people want bigger and better all the time and they want more and more. And there's not really an end to it, is there? I mean, yeah, it's one of those things that you can go on forever. But obviously, at some point, that it doesn't make people happy because it's just an ever-growing sort of thing. So let's have a look at the ways that you can get the more sort of slow burning happiness, the serotonin sort of hits. And that's basically through doing things, over the long term to be healthy. So stuff like eating the right foods can do that, whereas chocolate will give you a dopamine hit. Eating, green vegetables and stuff will give you that sort of slow burn because your body will be healthy. And that causes sort of this inner contentment and peace of mind. Other things that can cultivate it are meditation. That's a good one. Just doing the right thing, giving back to people, eating well, sleeping well, doing those sorts of things. So the problem that people find with the serotonin thing is you don't see the effects. Like, it's not an instant thing. And you have to wait. And sometimes you won't know actually what's caused what. For example, it's obvious when you have a drink, it's obvious that natural sort of hit immediately. It's just clear what it is. Whereas if you like, for example, I'm teetotal, and these days I don't drink, and I am healthier. But, I mean, it would take me to look back at my photos from, several years ago or whatever, and compare them with today to realise that, because day by day it's something that happens. So it's not, it's not an immediate thing. Another important thing, and this is really, really the crux of it, and this is about true happiness, is that serotonin hit, that sort of fixing all the time, is dependent on things. It's completely conditional. You have to get it from people. It's, again, dopamine, like, that first love thing, that's a dopamine hit. You get it from people and objects and things, which, you can't count on those things. They won't necessarily always be there. They won't necessarily always be available to you. So it's a very conditional type of happiness. And again, that's why some people go from relationship to relationship and other, want to gather all these possessions around them, because you can never be sure of the nature of having those things for the rest of your life. And sometimes they just don't become good enough anymore. Once you've got a nice house, it's like, oh, this is a bit pokey now. Let's go for a bigger house. And they don't last. This kind of happiness doesn't last. So the other type, the sort of serotonin slow burn happiness, is completely unconditional. You don't need anyone else for it. You don't need anything else for it. You can get it in certain circumstances from other things, but actually it's one of these internally cultivated things. It's that peace of mind. It's that feeling inside of, you know what, I'm living my life in a good way. And actually it's a much healthier form of happiness. That not only is it more accessible to you all the time, you don't need to do more and more of something to get it. You just have to, keep going along at the pace that you are. But an interesting thing as well about, these two things is that the dopamine sort of, like I said, it's a sort of up and down pattern of fix and low and fix and low and stuff. Whereas the serotonin has a much, broader, stable baseline. And it actually takes less effort. If you imagine, when you've had your dopamine spike, and then you go back down again, it takes a lot to get back up again. Whereas serotonin, it's just little tiny sort of waves and little steps. It's not actually as much effort over time to sustain that. I think you can, at the end of the day, one of these things that maybe when you're young, you think, it's all about having fun and, and going for the hits and the highs and stuff like that. But if you look at the stories of people, who are later on in life, and what do they always say? It's not the money that brings them happiness. It's not the power. It's not the fame. It's not the objects. You hear it time and time again. There's a great quote from Ringo Starr, where I think he said, he was in the Beatles. He was in the biggest group in the world. He had any woman he wanted, any, possessions he wanted. He had the cars. He had the houses. And he said at the end of the day, he was completely empty. Completely empty. And that was because he hadn't got this serotonin happiness, And that's probably when they all got into meditation and all that. The Beatles went through their phase of that. But that's what happens. It just happens over and over again. You can see this story, particularly from famous people. Hear it in the news all the time. They write their life story and it was like, you know what, I was so unhappy. I had all these things, all these external conditional things, and I was so unhappy. So that's why there's nothing wrong in a way with having some dopamine hits. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying as a little treat you can't do it. I like to go to the fun fair, for example, and I'm not going to stop doing that, but at the same time it's so much more important to sort of cultivate the long-term thing. And some things can give you a little bit of both. For example, say exercise. Exercise is a really good example of that. After a workout, you get that really kind of, if you do it properly, you get that really pumped up feeling like, oh, I could take on the world, particularly if you do something like martial arts or boxing or something like that. You've actually created, internally this sort of state of kind of, happiness. But it's over the long term that benefits you as well. So exercise is one of these ones that sort of fits quite nicely into both categories. But as I would say, hopefully you've concluded from this that really true happiness has to lie in doing all the things that bring that sort of tranquility, that peace of mind about. Some of the dopamine hits are alright sometimes. If you're an addict like me, you have to stay away from quite a lot of them. Biscuits, for example, no, because I need more and more of them. So I just don't do it. I just do the things which will keep me at the baseline, all the time. And I do. I live a very happy life nowadays. And I don't need things. I don't need possessions. I don't need anything like that. I just need to do things that make me sort of, like myself, make me feel like I'm giving to the world, and stuff that cultivates my inner strengths and resources. And that's good enough for me. And I think and I am someone that lived that sort of dopamine lifestyle for a long time. But I think, at the end of the day, people's stories speak for themselves. If you listen to people later on in life, they will always say, that stuff didn't make me happy. Didn't make me happy, that stuff did. Alright, anyway, lovely speaking to you. If you have any questions, pop them below. I'll stick my website below as well. There's more about this sort of thing on there. Alright, take care and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.